everyone. Welcome to Freebird Spirit YouTube channel. Thank you for coming and stopping by, hanging out for our continued discussions of wisdom behind awakenings. And as you can see, we are in the same room. Isn't that awesome?
Very scary, isn't it? Yeah.
And yeah, so I am here in New York. Chrys, just hanging out, having lots of discussions.
We're having our dream, which is to have
Tea, and
tea or coffee.
tea, coffee,
Yeah.
and discussions
Yeah.
24/7. So it is a dream.
Mhm.
It's heaven.
Mine's
Of
too hot
course.
to drink.
Of course, as soon as I got here, I lost my voice, so the discussions were a little
Postponed, shall we say?
so that's
Yeah.
how it goes. We tried to communicate.
We sent smoke signals. That's
Yeah.
about as far as we got. Yeah.
That's it is. So diving into today's discussion, and we're talking about what is wisdom even? Is wisdom subjective? What is wisdom? And we talk about wisdom behind the awakenings. What is wisdom? And Chrys, you found this, you had this quote.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was sharing a room with my sister and I wanted to make a collage. I was a teenager, wanted to make a collage. And I remember distinctly that one of the things I wanted on the collage was something about becoming a wise person.
Mhm.
I have no idea what that meant to me then, but somehow it came through as this is something that you're going to do in your life. And then I found an Emerson quote. So we've got a couple of them, but they're kind of fun. But this one is to laugh often and much, to win respect, to earn appreciation, to find the beauty in others. That's the challenge today. To leave the world better. One life has breathed easier because you lived here. And that's
one life has breathed easier because you lived here.
Yeah.
I love that, you guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and to find beauty in others.
Yeah, and we're really challenged at this point in our lives with all that. I mean, we just saw that Nancy Pelosi's husband was tied down to wait for her to arrive home, and they were threatening to.
They came there to get Nancy. I don't know the end result. They're still pulling out information, but
yeah,
it is challenging times to find that beauty in others, but we need to try, I guess.
Okay, I think you're beautiful.
Oh, so then we have to find beauty in ourselves, right?
Okay, yes.
So another thing I was finding in this particular quote is we're giving opportunities to be better, right? Wisdom gives us opportunities to be better, and this quote offers solutions to that.
But the wisdom comes from what I heard you say was that we start with wisdom, but wisdom is the effect of the work, right?
Oh, yes. Okay.
No, it's both.
Yeah, it's both.
I didn't think of it that way. When you said it, it was like, what? Yeah, it's both. It's both. You're bringing wisdom to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a kid can put that up on a collage in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Right? So we know we have a starting point.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a lifelong journey.
I find it interesting that you wanted to be better, do better at that age, and already stepping into wanting to live through that life of wisdom. And
well, it's a funny thing because that was the 70s. And for those of you who were around here then, the 70s was flower power, Peter, Paul, and Mary singing folk songs. It was peace marches, civil rights marches, women's movement stuff. So people were, it was
Bob
the
Dylan.
air, yeah, Bob Dylan, it was the air we breathed. It
Mhm.
was in the air to sort of make a better world, make a peaceful world, make an inclusive
Oh, you
world.
were part of that, you were part of that shift, and you're here to help us through this shift,
Yeah,
bringing your wisdom from then
Yeah.
to now.
well,
How frustrating is it to be here again, going through the same shift?
well, when you're a young person dealing with what's going on right now, you imagine a whole range of possibilities because you're sort of still somewhat fearless, right? And
Yeah.
and you're part of a
And
bigger,
you haven't had, you're still idyllic, right? You're like,
yeah,
Yeah.
you're an idealist. You're sort of
yeah,
you're imagining that anything's possible.
anything.
But that's one of the reasons I like teaching college, because they don't have a sense of, most of them don't have a sense of, I can't do that. You know,
They
they
still-
don't. So I had one yesterday. You heard the one yesterday. You know, she's saying, I'm a first generation college student. My family leans on me all the time because only myself and my cousin are educated.
Mhm.
And, you know, and I'm sitting there saying, it's okay. It's all right. You know, hang on. You know, it's going to be a hard, and of course, all the time I'm knowing what's ahead is going to be tough. It's going to be really hard.
On this side of it, right? So but you bring that piece of wisdom too. But can that be a battle then? Because it's like you're not in the 70s where you're still like, oh, idealistic of we can do anything, we can change anything. And then now, how many years later?
Well, I think what happens when we get older is that we know how many times it didn't work.
Mhm.
And we do have this tendency to focus on what didn't work as opposed to what does work. But you know, wisdom, I have to say that whenever I think about that as a concept or an idea, that I often think about elderly, and I often think about Native peoples, because what they do with elders is they're the pinnacle of the community. They're not something to sort of drag along with you. They're the pinnacle, and their wisdom is valued, and then they pass their wisdoms on through stories, and they're part of the. I was just reading about one Native culture in, I think it was in Canada or Alaska or somewhere, where the elders are part of the governing body.
Yeah.
But that's where the wisdom is acknowledged and it's valued. Now, it's not always right. I think it's important to understand that what they're really saying is, you've got stuff to share. It may not apply to this moment, but we still need to hear it to see if it does. And so when you look at what I went through in the 70s and the 80s, we didn't shy back. We said, we can do anything. We can change the world. We're gonna, and we did tons of stuff. You know,
You did change the world.
we did change the world to a large extent. Yeah. And now we're watching a backlash,
Mhm.
and we always knew it would come. We always knew it would come.
Mhm.
I didn't expect it would take this long. I thought it was going to be more immediate. And it was, the culture wars in the 80s were another sign of that. But having a president who, having had a
Mhm.
man who was, he was the embodiment of that backlash. There's no question. He embodies that backlash. You know, the sort of person who embraces racism, anti-Semitism, sexism, homophobia, money's my religion, you know, that kind of stuff. He embodies that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and he gives us something to rail against. But the fact is, he represents what's already in the world, what's already right around us. And I think, you know, I'm always amazed when I spend time with people who've done that work. You know, people from that period,
Yeah.
they're tired. we're all tired, and what you call aging up all the time, the body starts to speak a lot.
Yeah.
But, I find myself often in situations where I'm just quiet because what I've been through, nobody really wants to hear, and it's not always relevant.
And that takes me to the aging up
Yeah.
and the invisible, becoming the invisible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, you guys. And so I know, a lot of the family here, we're in the same position in that we're all aging up, but we're all in that same spot where all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a real deal. We are literally invisible. Like you can be in the grocery store and people run into you.
Mhm.
You're so invisible.
Yeah. Well, when I was going through the thing where I was having a hard time walking after I fell, the occupational therapist came to the house and she said, "You're going to Trader Joe's?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "That's very dangerous." I said, "What's dangerous about it?" I said, "I hold the cart." She says, "No, they're not watching you. They're going to walk right into you." And of course they do.
They do. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
And but you were saying these other cultures, they honor and respect.
Yeah.
And they don't become invisible.
Yeah. Well, you do. You honor and respect, and which is one of the reasons we have these conversations, because you've said to me many times you came from a generation that helped us get some of the stuff we've taken for granted, and that's of course the other side of that, which is the whole piece about what's taken for granted.
Oh, taken for granted, yeah. But why wouldn't we want to talk to people who have already? Why reinvent the wheel when you already understand the what's happening? You have the backstory. We have, getting that backstory, getting the understanding. We're, a lot. You guys, we do different shows on my channel, and we're often going, how can this be? What's happening? Why? And it's like, well, here's why. And so, I think where we have failed in this wisdom as a whole is putting our wise older generation in that invisible space. Try to put them, well, and I think a lot of it's fear. People don't want to get older.
Yeah, well, there's that. How many times do we say to each other, why didn't somebody tell us what it was going to be like? It's like, whoa, you turned 70 and what?
What?
Now what? You sort of constantly go through that, right?
Yeah.
So
Daily.
Not only are we not, as this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about like, why don't we tell children that death is part of life? Why don't we help them understand that it's the same thing? It's really, because you're on your way. I think part of it is that you're perceived as being on your way. You're going to go home soon. That kind of thing. It becomes more obvious that you're going to go home. And that's our denial system about not.
Oh, I think you're pinpointing it here. I think people it's fear. And then so they go into denial because it's like, okay.
But look at the culture we've created where we've got news media where the driving motto is, if it bleeds, it leads. If you just look at newspapers and news sites and anything like that, all you see is things to fear. That's all you see. So we're being conditioned, socialized every day to be afraid. So not only and then you add to that the mix. Yeah, I'm going to be careful here, but you add to that the mix around capitalism, that the people who are the most valued are the ones who are perceived as the most productive in the economy. So children are not valued and the elderly are not valued. If you're retired, so what use are you? If you're too young to work, we'll socialize you. We'll teach you how to be a good citizen when you get there. So that's the focus. The focus is more on what are perceived as the productive citizens, but it's by definition within a particular economic society. Not all societies are like that.
Mhm.
So the value systems operate differently. But I think there's so much to learn from Indigenous people that who are so much wiser than we are about all of these things. And mostly because their cultures are thousands of years old.
Mhm.
You know, you were talking about what it's like in Syracuse to look at older houses, and I'm thinking, compared to where in the world, right? Right. They're older here. They're like 19th, early 20th century. But in other parts of the world, these are like barely here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah.
There's a piece here that I wanted to backtrack on that you were saying. Of course, I didn't write it down.
The economy.
It's an aging up thing. Then we go back to the narrative here. The narrative that our culture is telling us about the aging up, and words placed on it. So we're sucked into this narrative, and that narrative, and that's why we're here. We're busting through all these narratives, I think, and hopefully the narrative of aging up needs to change. So so we have trouble finding a word. Let's say, oh, they're losing their mind.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not, in reality, there's so much in here, so much in our in their being. There's just so much there to offer and share. And but even as an even and tell me, I've seen this in others too, that they believe it too. The people who are aging up, they start to believe that too. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just.
But that's
on the
that's a
shelf.
real thing. It's a real thing. It's come up in other conversations, about how we internalize the negative messages. So we have things like internalized racism. I can be a person of color and I can think I'm not okay.
Right.
Which is not true, right?
Correct.
I can be a woman and think I'm not okay. And we've talked about that a lot, about women not being able to sort of speak up for what's. We were talking about that a lot earlier in the week. It's very sad to me that so many women have bought the message that they're inferior. And so what you find is you find some of the more verbal ones, let's say, that we're dealing with right now, who are very strident, but they're almost really strident about not being good, that women aren't okay. They're not seeing themselves as okay. And so being a woman and standing up against women's right to make choices about their own bodies means I don't think women are okay, which means I'm not okay. So we've got internalized sexism, internalized racism, internalized ableism, internalized, just about pick a topic, wherever the oppression lives, it gets internalized, and you have to fight against that most of your life because you're in a culture that says you're not okay. And I love hearing students talk about stuff. Most of the students I come in contact with come out of the city, come out of New York City. And many of them are students of color, and many of them are living in areas where their schools are all of color, right? And frequently they'll say, I never saw myself as a Black person, or whatever that means, until I was in a school that was mixed,
Oh, interesting.
And whites don't usually say that. That's just normal, right? So you see the way the racial oppression works, sort of in what they're exposed to and what they're not exposed to. And I think that's a lot of what it is. A lot of it is, I'm so used to being around women who don't value themselves that, I'm not wrong. I'm not doing anything. And then you go back to what you talk about all the time about constructs that we're loaded with religious constructs
Mhm.
that tell us that women are made from Adam's rib, which of course is the most ludicrous thing on earth. But it's that kind of those kinds of messages that we give more weight to than our own intuition, our own
Yep.
instincts, our
Mhm.
own sense of self. And so when you meet up with children who are so full of presence, right? I'm good. They don't even think about it. They don't think about it. They just are.
They just are.
They just are.
Yeah.
Can I help you with that? Oh, good. When you have made it available Ellen to us, she's so beautiful that way, right?
Yeah.
She says the sweetest things to you,
Mhm.
It's like it just comes naturally.
Yeah.
She's not walking around going, nobody likes me. And you hear kids do that all the time.
Yes.
Nobody likes me, or I'm having my child is so nervous going back to school after COVID because they've never been around other people before. And what if they don't like me?
Right. Where's that question coming from?
It's
It's the narratives, it's
Yeah.
the stories, it's the constructs that come in. I remember when Elowen was, just 2 and just so vibrant and just amazing. She could walk in the room and it was just the room would change with her just amazing vibrance, right? And she was so unabashedly joyful and had so much feelings and unabashedly.
Mhm.
And I remember looking at him like, oh my gosh, the world's gonna steal that from her.
Yeah.
And it just I started grieving then, knowing that the world was gonna steal this unabashedly just amazing energy that she brought. And you can see over time that it has been bashed down. And then once you get in school and then you start taking on all the narratives around you and you're like, okay, does that take bits and pieces of what you hear and what people say?
Mhm.
And you guys can know, you guys remember back, you can remember a story back of, oh, when I was in 2nd grade, Billy said this and it's still kind of stuck in there. And so from then on, you're like, I don't like my fingernails because Billy said it when I was in 2nd grade. I had horse fingernails. You know what I mean? So I'm making that up, but just to give an example, but so then that sticks in there. I have horse fingernails. I don't like my fingernails. I'm never going to show my fingernails. It sticks in there. We grab onto things and we grab onto the things that are hurtful. All the nice things we let go because we don't believe that because the negative wins out, right? All the time.
You made me think about a time when it was a pubescent time, right? And I went to the town pool, and this boy said, "You have a body like an upside down Christmas tree." The hell does that mean? What does that mean? And I remember being crushed that he said that. I was like, I do. Oh my God, what is an upside down Christmas tree? It's like, aren't your shoulders bigger than your hips? Sometimes. I mean, it's like, what? But I thought that was mean and negative, and I better keep this body covered up because somebody's going to say something mean to me. It's we're not doing it well. I keep thinking about Pink song.
And of course, every model would want that body, right?
But, yeah,
all the models had your
yeah.
body.
Yeah, well, of course, then I went to work for the airlines and I weighed less than 100 pounds and everybody called me Twiggy. And all the women I worked with were like, I wish my body were that small.
Right.
It's like, well, I was also anorexic, but who cares? How'd you look? Right. So yeah, this is you just said something, it made me think of something else. What was it? I was thinking about Pink's song, Irrelevant.
Oh yeah.
And there's a line in that song where she's singing and she says,
Irrelevant.
She says, the kids are not all right. The kids are not all right.
You guys,
The
if you
kids
haven't
are
heard the
not all
song,
right.
you need to listen to Pink's song.
But it's the truth. We've created a culture that's not a culture where our children are all thriving.
They are not.
And
And the kids are not all
and we're
right.
allowing people who would tear us down, who aren't satisfied with everyone having equal voice, who don't want democracy. Democracy is really, gets thrown around a lot, but it's really about, imagine a family where only one person talks and what they say goes and everybody else has to follow.
Well, a lot of you are going, oh, that was our family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What happens when you actually have a family discussion? Say, we've got this issue. What should we do together? And as a group, you change it. Now, there's tons of research on groups and how much more productive they are than individuals and how we all thrive in those kinds of settings. I mean, there's a reason that people gravitate towards churches and synagogues and various places because they're people, they're communities. They participate together. But we've got people whose voices are very loud right now who are making statements about that would destroy our democratic principles, which is our collective, right? Being able to share ideas, make ideas grow, socialize our children so they are safe, and then these fantasies that somehow a book is gonna corrupt my child. It's like, get a grip. That's not gonna. When does the last time a book corrupted your child? Really, get a grip.
I mean,
I was thinking about back in the day in San Francisco during the gay rights era. Harvey Milk was alive, and Harvey Milk was a councilman. I think a councilman. He was in politics in the city of San Francisco, right?
mhm.
And there was this huge effort on the part of the right wing to try and create a space, try and keep gay people from teaching. And so he was on a panel discussion. And one of the people on the panel was a nun saying, we don't want to corrupt our children. We don't want gay people in the classroom. That's right. And he said, with all due respect, if it was that powerful, all of our kids would be nuns. And I thought that was such a great response.
Wow.
It's like, if you were really that powerful, all the kids in your school would become nuns. And she stopped talking. It was like, you sat there going, oh, that was really good. And he said, with all due respect, but we're like hysterical. We're hysterical. Oh my God. If I let trans people in, what will happen? Oh my God, what will happen? I mean, get a grip. What will happen? And how many are we talking about? My brother-in-law said that to me. What do you think about the trans thing? I said, how many people are we talking about now? And he looked at me and went, what do you mean? You making it a big issue? How many? 3, 6, maybe? Where?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason trans stuff has become as big as it is because we've allowed the industry of cosmetic surgery to become a main player in American society. It wasn't an issue before that.
Right. Even though
There's always been people who,
there's trans people, but it wasn't it wasn't, we didn't see it because there wasn't the surgery.
The headline one of the headlines in today's paper was about two male and female parents whose daughter went to change her clothes in the gym in the gym locker room, and a trans kid who still had a penis but had become female was changing his clothes, her clothes, their clothes. And they were like, we don't want my daughter in a room with, that kind of stuff. So, you start the debate, right? Yeah, I lost it. I was going to say something else. What was it? Oh, I think what's really important here, I've been studying this for a long time, and I've mentioned this book a million times, which is Joan Roughgarden's book, Evolution's Rainbow.
Evolution's a Rainbow.
No, Evolution's apostrophe S Rainbow.
Evolution's rainbow.
Yes. In other words,
Evolution's rainbow.
All of the natural world is highly variable. What she and I know I mentioned it before, what she points out, she's trans. She's a Stanford biologist. She points out that when other biologists are studying nature, they don't want to be able to say, they don't want to reveal the evidence of variations in nature, because it goes against, what we do with humans, because they're afraid their reputation will be damaged. So we're not always getting the truth. So she lays it out. And I said this before, it's like we see the gecko in commercial, the Geico commercials, and it's a gecko and you got a male voice, and there are no male geckos. There are no male geckos. And so I said that to students the other day, and they said, well, how do they reproduce? So, well, that's the question, isn't it? What are all the possibilities, right? What's the variation? Nature, by definition, is highly variable. I have more in common with a male body than I do with a female body. There's so much variation that you got to look at our bodies, who we are, on a spectrum, on a continuum. There's huge amounts of variation. The Navajo have a whole tradition where if you're born with the genitalia of both sexes or some version of intersex, that they let you choose. Who would you like to be when you grow up? Okay, and we'll live that lifestyle. But, in the West, in the medical profession, we say we've got to correct those things. So while we're so busy correcting it, people finally started saying, no, I think I'll take charge of it. And I think I'll be who I want to be. And so you see start to shift and change.
And so, that brings fear to some folks. And that's where you see the division happening, and the strong opinions and the strong fear-based,
all fear.
Fear-based responses to people.
Yeah. So where's the wisdom in
that? Which brings me all the way back to the word relevant. Yeah, relevant.
Because it resonates how?
On all the levels. We want to be relevant. We want to be seen, heard, remembered. These are basic human things, right?
I don't know. I'm an ET. I have hard.
Okay, just pretend for a moment you're human. You're having a human experience. You're an ET and
Okay.
a human having a human experience.
On my planet. It doesn't quite work that way. Yeah.
So how does it all connect? What a web we weave. Tell you, we just want to be relevant. Taking it back to the aging up, the age process.
I think it comes back to
making us all not relevant any longer.
What do we want to? What do we want? What do we want to create? What do we want to make possible? I mean, think about all of the psychic mediums who are spending their time answering people's questions about these hard issues around crime and corruption and violence and all of that, and spending their time trying to comfort people and be kind to people and talk about spirit and what to strive for and what you start with, which lead with love, and what does love mean, all of that. And that's what I think is what we're always talking about. We're always talking about what's in our way. How do we get there?
Yeah.
What you said to me earlier today about that life is supposed to be hard. It's, that's where the lessons are, is in the hard stuff. But what do we do with this hard stuff, and why do we create so much hard stuff we don't have to create?
Oh, see, there you go. It doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be this hard. But we get so caught in our constructs and message, these internal messaging, that our spirit team, who's there to help us evolve and awaken and do the things we came here to do, that those tower moments come in to jolt us out,
Give you enormous stress.
to jolt us out
It's a
of
tower moment.
our tower moments,
Mm-hmm.
to get us on our right path. And we were talking about that a little bit this earlier, in regards to my journey here and doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be jolted a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
paddle.
Well, it's the only reason.
The couple towers there to get me to become, to get on this path of where I needed to be the whole time.
Well, and that's how I met you.
Right. So
Right.
it opens,
And then we talk and this happens. It's, those are things that get that. What's that image? Well, it's the phoenix.
Phoenix.
It's the phoenix.
Mhm.
You crash and burn and then you rise from the ashes. And
But I feel like, we don't have to crash and burn. We just don't. But the thing is we get caught in these things and we don't listen. We don't follow the signs to, okay, I know that this is where I need to go, but we get so caught and so asleep in this dream world that we're living or whatever. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. I need to get up and go to work and pay my bill. You get caught in life, and that makes sense. However, there's other things that we're here to do and become and awaken to. And we settle in what's comfortable. And if we don't listen and we don't make those moves on ourselves, and that's where intuition comes in, right? We all are intuitive. We all know. We all have knowings. We all are psychic. We're all that. So if we're not listening and keeping on that growth area, we're going to get those towers to awaken and get us back on track.
I keep hearing the voice of people who are saying, yeah, I was listening, but my life was so hard. Couldn't find work, or I wasn't paid enough to live, or, somebody got really sick, and my whole life stopped dead because, my family member is on the death's door and all of a sudden it's all right there. And, or my child is sick or whatever, it just derails you.
Right.
So
some, in some of that too, it's like, again, we put ourselves, and you can help me with this language, I think. But you begin to believe that I'm not worthy of a bigger paying job, or there's some disconnect, because we are all connected into source, right? We all are connected into the wealth of whatever, you know what I mean? So when so instead of putting your energy towards what I don't have, what I'm lacking, what is not working, this is hard, and all your energy is going towards, then guess where you're going to be? Continually in until little by little, we hear something, we go, oh, I'm connected to all the wealth in the universe because I am source, right? So you connect, you're like, okay, oh, so it starts to break down your constructs of, oh, poor, not that you're consciously saying poor me. I'm not, don't think I'm saying any of that, but you understand what I'm saying, hopefully. It's just literally pulling yourself out of those constructs and out of those belief systems into acknowledging you and your empowerment and you're connected. We're connected to source and health and wholeness, but part of our beliefs believe that we need to be here, or it's familiar, or whatever it is that keeps you in those areas.
Yeah. No, I had a million thoughts, but it's like, okay. The one thought I had is that one of these times we should talk about just talk about the quantum field and the law of attraction.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds more intellectual, but I think it's a really important thing
It
to
is.
understand, because it's really what you're talking about.
Okay.
As you put things out, I'm going to try and do this in a really simple way. It's probably going to be awful, but when we've said this before, only 4% of what's around you can you sense. 96% of everything that's around you is energy. You are energy. We're both energy. Everything around us is energy. The more your energy goes out, the more that energy comes back. So if you put out negative, you get back negative. You put out positive, you get back positive. It's basically called the quantum field, but we could do that another time where we can sort of lay it out more, but it's also the law of attraction, right? So as you go through, I was, when you were talking, all I could think of is, what would it be like if we only had to deal with how to be a better loving person? If the only thing you had to worry about, you came into this life and the only thing you had to learn was how to be a better loving person, only living in love energy, right?
Yeah.
Not worry about money and like all that junk. Now it's all noise, right? So at the end of your life, you're not sitting there saying, geez, I wish I paid Verizon more money. You're not doing that. You're like, who am I saying goodbye to? What kind of life did I live? Who did I love? Who did I help? What did I do? So and it when it's happening. I know it when it's happening to me. I know, you witnessed one episode yesterday where this young person's calling me and is struggling, and I can help her. And it feels good. It's like, yeah, I can help you because I've been through all that stuff. It's like, okay, let's talk about what's realistic here. How to manage it, how to get through it. And you're great, instead of what she was feeling, which is that in this education institution, if I don't get my work done on time, I'm not okay. Right. So I'm trying to say to her, you're fabulous. You're totally, give her a whole different voice. I can give you an incomplete. You do this job, help you get done. Right. Years ago, I had a job before this one at Russell Sage College, and I had a department chair, and I was a new professor, and my relationship had ended. My dad had died, and I was about to go to a major conference, and I was on a tenure line, and the pressure was off the charts. And I was in my office, and I was in tears. So Maureen, who we now call Mom, she came into my office, and she looked at me and she said, turn around. So I turned around in my chair, and she sat down straight in front of me. And she said, okay, what's in front of you? And I told her, and she said, what do we need to tackle first? And I said, this, and this. And she said, okay. And then she held me. I cried, and then I went to work. But I felt like I had been supported, loved, respected. I got through that hard moment, and I have remembered her forever.
Of course.
I saw her last year. It's like, it's like
you were important.
Yeah, I was seen.
And
She saw me. She saw me. She cared. She helped me figure it out. And that's what was yesterday. It was like, the moment I do something like that, I'm paying it forward, right? I'm taking what Maureen did for me and giving it to Naomi, right? So what if our lives were only that,
Right.
right? What if what we came to work on was just being loving beings?
Just being.
We would create different social systems. We would create different educational systems. We would create different economic systems that would probably not be economic systems at all, but rather sharing. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm so drawn oftentimes, and of course, there's that wonderful book that's sitting underneath your computer about the indigenous continent, that the value systems of these civilizations that were here for thousands of years before any of us arrived here. Yes, that's it. Oh, aren't you clever?
Just make sure.
Yeah, that's the one. He's brilliant. And it's really about, this is what the other topic we talk about all the time, how perspective changes who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's doing is he's writing American history from the standpoint of people who are already here. And what they had already worked out, thousands of years ago, they worked out that war doesn't get them anywhere. So they made it so that they aren't warring nations anymore. This whole idea of living communally or collectively, where everybody in the community thrives, where everyone has equal access, where elders are part of the community. The babies, the adults go do work, and the babies go and sit with the elders, and the elders tell them their stories.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
Everyone is relevant.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think
Everyone is
we've got
relevant.
lots to celebrate. We've got lots to be grateful for. At the same time, we've got a lot of work to do because we've really made a mess.
Mm-hmm.
This mess is all of ours. I said this before, when we talk about immigration as an issue, we created that issue. They didn't. We did. We allowed our governments, our businesses to go and take from people who couldn't fight back their stuff. And then in that process, they have to find work and how to survive.
Yep.
And so they come back like in the Southwest, where those were their ancestral lands, and we sit around saying, what are they crossing our border for? We crossed their border. We stole their lands. What the hell? What are we doing? So yeah, I think we've got a lot of work to do to bring that level of humanity back to. It's actually not humanity. I think the word humanity has human in it when we sort of talk about humans as being not okay, but I think it's really bringing love back to.
Bringing love. How to be a better loving being.
Yeah.
Leading with love.
Yeah.
If that's all we focus on, you can really tell here where it would infiltrate, like you just bullet pointed out for us.
I did.
You did really well. And how it would infiltrate all those areas just by wanting to be better, loving.
When you spend your day saying to yourself, everything I'm going to do today is going to be out of love, right? Everything I do.
Yeah.
Well, you said to me earlier, how do you do the dog, given what you're dealing with? How do you take care of the dog? That's the first word in my head. When I'm lying in that bed and saying to myself, I don't want to get up. I don't want to care. I do care.
Yeah.
And so I say to myself, that's not being loving to her. So I get my ass out of the bed,
Yeah.
So yeah. But
love is a motivator.
How do I make Debbie comfortable when she's here, when she's sick?
Yeah. Just be loving beings. I love that. So let's look at,
Can you pause that for a second?
I
What time is it?
Yeah, so Chrys forgot about an appointment.
I forgot about an appointment.
That's why we had to
I
pause.
totally have no idea what day of the week it is right now. So we usually do this on Mondays. And it's not
Yeah,
Friday,
it is
so
Friday,
in my head, it's Monday, but okay. Yeah.
but we're
And
back.
those are those moments when you screw up and you say to yourself, I'm still okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. People, we make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
don't spin out on that.
I'm still cute. Okay. Yeah.
You are still cute. Okay, so I wanted to maneuver talking about, that better loving being. Just if we woke up every day and or just came here, and I do believe that's what we come here for, is to be that.
We get sidetracked. I think that's where the
We get
challenges come in. The challenges come in
always
to derail
right.
that. And then you have to fight your way back to being that person again.
It's like when
So that's
games
got to be
those
your
kids
starting
play,
point
they're
every day.
constantly like
Yeah.
darting as soon as you get.
Well, and the violence, I mean, part of the issue is that there's so much violence in the culture that it's like, it's just, I mean, why are we even arguing about guns? Really? Really?
Right. Yeah,
Really?
don't even get me started on
Why?
that. That's a
Yeah,
whole-
right. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
why are we spending the time on that?
Yeah.
You know, and I've said that all along. It's like, why are we not out? My new campaign. Why are we not out putting railings on everybody's houses? Because a lot of the elders can't navigate those stairs.
Right.
And I just went to visit somebody the other day, and I could barely walk out of the house, and she was too sick to be able to help me. So it's sort of like, how are you going to do that? So I'm holding on to the pillar. I mean, why are we not building railings? Instead, we're talking about freaking guns. Take the metal from a gun and build a railing.
There you go.
Right? I mean, if Yeshua could turn blood into wine? What was it?
Yeah. No.
What was
Water.
it? Water into wine. I'm thinking of the Catholic
I'm sure
Church.
he could turn blood into wine because, well, it was
Yes.
water.
Yeah. If Yeshua could do that, then you can turn guns into railings
There you go.
or wheelchair ramps,
There you go.
right?
Wheelchair ramps.
So now we're talking about a whole paradigm shift.
But here's the deal. People, until it affects them, if you're not coming from that better loving being place, if it's not affecting them, it's not their issue.
I know. Well,
that's a problem.
That dumb white weddings book. That was the whole point. We're spending $32,000 on average for a party, and we've made it sacred. It would have been sacred regardless of a party.
Right.
It would have been sacred regardless of a license. It's not, love is always sacred.
Love is sacred.
So, we do that stuff and then we say, but I'm getting married. Right. Now, your kid needs school. You need someplace to live. Your mom doesn't feel good. I mean, you can go through the list and say, how else could I use that $32,000 to make it a better world for everybody and to be focused on becoming a more loving person? Why are you laughing?
I love it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's have some tea.
Let's have some tea. So, what's the messaging that's blocking? Yeah, let's ask each other. What's the messaging blocking our ability to for those awakenings? What's the messaging? What is the constructs that are in place that's blocking us from living better, loving better?
Everything. I mean, think about it. I mean, from the time you're little, you're being socialized to be a good citizen, to be a good worker, to be whatever, to follow the rules, to go to school, to learn what they give you. Almost everything is designed to shape you in a particular direction.
So let's start breaking those down. And let's start breaking them down in our own personal lives, you guys. Let's start being better. Let's break down those constructs that are blocking us from living better and awakening. Let's do that together.
One of the things that always struck me is most of it had to do with growing up in this town, because this is like one of the snow capitals of the world here. Or it was, it's not now. but averaging 150 inches of snow a year is, what you learn from a very young age is on a bad day, on a really bad weather day, you will automatically look out toward the person next to you. At home, do you need help? Do you need food? Cars get stuck. Do I have to help? Do you need help being pushed out? You don't sit around and say, are you a Democrat or a Republican? You say, somebody needs help. You go out and you help. Somebody brings food to you because, one year we had a blizzard that left us with 6 feet of snow within 48 hours. We had snowmobiles coming in with food. We're helping older people navigate. We're digging each other out. We're pushing cars, snowblower. So when I moved to Stuyvesant, where they didn't have big snow, I had a snowblower. We had a bad storm. I'm out. Oh, I'm on automatic, right? Oh, snow. Okay, I'm going to go out and go snowblow. So I'm out in the driveway. And then I realized my neighbors are all plowed in because the plows leave heavier stuff, right? So I go to their driveways and I start plowing. I mean, snowblowing, and I'm digging them all out,
Yeah.
right? I'm having a ball. I was like, I couldn't have been happier, right? One of the women in one of the houses, woman and a man, she contacts her husband. She says, some guy must have gotten a snowblower for Christmas because they just snowblowed my driveway. I'm going, it was me. And no, it's not a new snowblower. And yes, but she noticed, that's the other part was that she noticed and she was grateful. But that's what it means to sort of not pay attention to constructs.
And you notice it took a tower moment for people to come to come. I mean,
Yeah,
you would do it anyways, but I'm just saying it takes those tower moments that we so it's kind of pulling us back all the way around now, to kind of shake us awake and bring us together. So you notice that when we have a national disaster, people come together, communities come together. I've seen it many, many times, with living in San Diego with the fires and like that, and things being shut down and neighborhoods coming together and
those stories from Hurricane,
and
the people trying to help somebody who couldn't help themselves. They're really powerful.
It brings us to that place of
brings you to the basic,
that loving, being better.
Yeah.
Coming from that loving space. No one asks, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? And, before I help you, I need to know. No, it is literally from that place of pure intentional love and human coming together, human kindness. But it takes those tower moments to shake us awake again. So how can I want to get out in front of these towers? I don't want any more towers. So I want to be better before any towers. So
I know that, I've been through such a rough time these past 3 years that the one, and we were talking about this earlier. I think it was even Emerson said something about it. It's that whole notion of putting one foot in front of the other when it's a hard time. But what I have constantly tried to remind myself is to be in loving energy, whether you feel like crap or not, whether bad stuff's happening around you. How do you stay there? It's really hard to stay there when you're just like you want to go inside and just say, why isn't anybody loving me? You go in that space.
Well, and you have beautiful stories of overcoming every time you go for another treatment at the hospital, that it's not easy. Yet you're showing kindness and love to those around you, the nurses, the other patients.
My feeling has been, I want
literally go in there and go,
well, I'm sure that's there. Yeah.
But you did.
But they're being so loving to me too. It's just, I so empathize with them that's really hard work, and that they don't have to be nice to me. They could just treat me like any other person. I had one yesterday, treated me like just another person that I didn't know her. I don't know her. I'd never seen her. But even the doctor on Monday, when I had the injection in my knee, and he had that guy holding me down so I wouldn't jump while he was putting the injection in. When he was all done, he gave me the sweetest hug.
Yeah.
The doctor gave me the sweetest hug. You sit there and go, that was just more than you paid for. It was just in those moments. And then the oncologist came in on Wednesday, and first thing she did was come around the curtain with her hand out, and hi, and we tell stories, we tell little jokes, and we be loving. It just makes it so much better. I mean, I could easily sit there and just grouse.
Yeah.
I could just complain, just whine, just say, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
You could go there. When you go there, you realize you get sicker.
Mm.
You realize it gets worse. And so what I think I've learned through this process is that the more I'm in love, the less miserable I am.
There you go.
And the more it's like I'm saying to myself, because I've had to sort of have that conversation. We've talked about that, the death sentence stuff. I have to say to myself, when I die, when I leave, I'm never going to die, but when I leave, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
What do I want to leave behind? That's what Yvonne and I talk about that all the time. What do you want to leave behind? And what do you want to feel as you're leaving? My mom was really my greatest teacher, because she was saying, I love you, and was an hour away from her last breath, and saying, I just want to go home. And I had never heard her say that she was anything about home. Had never said it.
Interesting.
And then watching her take her last breath is like, okay. Watching that spirit leave is like, wow, okay, I got it. That's good. I think I'd like to be, that's my path, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it takes work, because we've been so socialized to not be in that space.
Yeah.
It takes work to say to people, I don't believe in weddings. It takes work.
Right.
Because you become, you must be an ass. How could you not believe in a wedding? It's like, well, everybody loves love. It's like, well, yeah, but there are many forms.
Right.
Not just one that costs that much money.
Right.
There's just many forms. So, yeah. And knowing that the love people have given me through this, it just feels, it's like my dad said years ago. I was ready to go back to school, and he'd been through a really bad time, and he said, come in here and talk to me, but everyone else leave the room. So it's just the two of us. And he said, I'll give you $1,000. Of course, in the early 80s, that was a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. And so he said, I'll give you $1,000 towards school on one condition. I said, what? He said, you pay it forward, and you never ask anyone to pay you back.
Wow.
And I said, deal. So it's just like, yeah, those are those messages. Those are really powerful moments.
So,
Should just go.
Oh, I was just closing up here for us. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Let's be that better, loving, lead from love.
Well, let's take the Freebird Spirit motto.
Right.
Lead with love, and make that something you say to yourself every day.
And then when you start doing that, I feel like we'll start recognizing where our challenges are. They'll start showing up. And that way we can start breaking some of those down. And that, will open into that awakening that we always talk about.
Well, and just a little plug about Monday nights.
Okay.
Women Empowering Women,
Mm.
the show that she and Kim and Andrea do, which teaches us that our predecessors had much more difficult times, and they led with love, and they made a huge difference in the world. And when they come into you guys, when you talk to them, those are always their messages. Their messages are always about that. But we've all have towers to navigate.
We do, we do. And as we sign off, I just want you to know that you are relevant and that you are, you know, as we come in to make change and shifts and be part of that energy movement, you're doing that and you are relevant and you are loved. So
She's
yeah.
pretty cute too, isn't she?
So blessings to you, and thank you again for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.